All right. So far there's been a lot of pro-atheistic arguments, okay, and that's fair because um, atheism, sorry, is the truth. Not spiritual atheism necessarily, but atheism proper. So in atheism proper, you're not God either. Okay, in spiritual atheism, in some circles, well, they pass for a spiritual atheism anyway, which is nothing more than Satanism. They could be God. So actually, we'll divorce that sort of idea a little bit for a second. The idea that you can't be God, because that would be devil worship, is probably a Christian doctrine thing. So, the idea that everything's God, therefore you're God too, is a Hindu one, which isn't necessarily Satanism. So, the Christians need to stop projecting their perspective about other people's religions onto those religions, because it isn't necessarily the case at all. The Hindu perspective might be actually a bit different. Take, for example, Blavatsky's idea of the hierarchy, or spiritual hierarchy. Basically, she got Christian angelology and Christian demonology, and she gave it new names. And pretended Hindu masters in Mount Shasta told her about it. Or was it a different mountain? Either way, there was a group of ascended masters who lived in India who told her to get the Christian angelology and the Christian demonology and give it new names. Okay, that's sort of like partial rip-offs of other people's ideas and relabeling. It's sort of probably one of the reasons why some people at times saw through her act and thought she was a charlatan, because technically she was. Okay, on the subject of whether or not that represents the Hindu asuras or devas, you might want to ask someone who's actually Hindu. So this body probably cannot educate you on that. Unfortunately, phenomenologically, when growing up, this physical body went to a Catholic school. As you might imagine, they didn't get along with the teachers there very much in their teenage years. Anyway, okay, not at all. Anyway, they even got into trouble. Okay, they even got sent to a Catholic university in the hopes that doing philosophical debates with the lecturers there might turn them back into a Catholic again. It was called grooming, you see. They said it was a seminar for talented and intellectually talented students or something like that, and everyone that went to the seminar just happened to be the atheists from their school. And the so-called lecturer or tutor or whatever tried to ask them a question of, if there's no God, then where does morality come from? Okay, I mean, it was a complete fucking sham. Okay, so we're not particularly keen on this idea, this culturally myopic idea that any particular group has what you might call the trademark or copyright on ethics or morality. Okay, it is actually the case that every single culture throughout human history didn't like murder and rape, and sometimes would kill you for rape too. Okay, so, or murder you for murder. It's called the death penalty. Okay, or payback in some cultures. It's not, morality and ethics is really not the hallmark of any particular group. And considering also that the vast majority of world societies that had not been affected by imperial conquests until very, very recently did in fact have an almost horizontal council-based, communal-based form of leadership and lawmaking, so they didn't have a hierarchy. You can also rightly assume that hierarchy is not the source of morality either. So we're not really sure how we should turn to angels or demons, or asuras or devas for the basis of morality or ethics, considering they're not a prerequisite for whether or not you have morality or ethics. And if you believe that, then you're culturally myopic bigot who is literally pissed on about 8 billion of the 9 billion of the world's people. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Christianity is apparently 4 billion people. Okay, fine. 5 billion of the world's 9 billion people. So just the majority, okay? But then again, the Muslims account for about 2 billion people, and they are a variant of Judeo-Christianity, actually, as it turns out. They do refer to the Jews and the Christians in the first surahs of the Surah Quran, at least, to be the people of the book, and therefore you shouldn't harm them. They're not kafir, they're not the pagan idolaters or whatever. So, subsequently, that's sort of maybe. Okay, so hang on. So it's 6 billion of the world's 9 billion people subscribe to the idea of a dichotomous hierarchy that is the basis of all morality, and blames the Jews for it, whilst upholding them as the source of their holy men, or their original holy men in some cases, prophets and whatever else. And probably misquotes the Jews because the Bible and the Quran aren't the Torah or the Talmud. Okay, a little bit confused by that one. Okay, there seems to be a sort of a theme of worshipping those you put down. Like it's kind of like, and to be fair, the worshipping those that you put down does seem like a Jewish thing, in the sense that there is a bit of a stereotype about Jewish women, about them being these sort of like, son, don't do that type of characters, which having no rights whatsoever. So, you might want to, those deprecated mothers that have no rights that you simultaneously worship. Isn't exclusively Jewish though. Incidentally, it's very Hindu. So it's probably just patriarchy at work, regardless of the religion. On that subject, it shows that patriarchy existed before those religions, which we know it did because the Code of Hammurabi was in fact Babylonian and existed before the Canaanite religion of Yahweh and Ashtar. So there's that. And incidentally, it was contemporaneous to one of the not the earliest kingdoms of ancient Egypt, but sort of around the middle there. So it was about 6,000 years ago. It was a shit ton of time ago. That's the one that said women were property. And, yeah. And designated in which situations men could be property too. Fun times. Okay, so now that we've established that religion has absolutely no relationship to morality and ethics whatsoever, and we know that morality is some kind of argument about shit people don't like because it do harm, and shit people do like because it do good, and ethics is some kind of debate on whether or not some things are moral goods or evils depending on their circumstances. Is it the case that morality is relativistic, or ethics should be relativistic? Well, some would say yes, because 99% of the time, if you kill someone, it's a bad thing. But honest to goodness, if you walked in on someone raping a kid and you stabbed them through the fucking neck, no one's going to judge you. Be fair, you wouldn't judge them, would you? The only thing you'd be concerned about is if that poor kid saw it. Be honest. Be honest now. Be honest now. You wouldn't you? You wouldn't judge. There'd be blood all over the floor. The police would be cleaning up a dead fucking body. And then they'd be going, kid, don't worry about it. They were just protecting you. In other situations, stabbing people's bad. You're not allowed to do that. But considering what they were doing, it was acceptable. Don't worry about it. We'll get you some help. Okay? Right? The aftermath would be quite messy. There might even be a manslaughter charge, depending on which jurisdiction they're in. But most people in the community wouldn't judge them. Okay, right? Why? Because on a moral level, it's considered like, a moral level, there's an strong emotional component where most red-blooded adults will go, fair enough. Wouldn't they? They would. They'd go, fair enough. They probably wouldn't judge. Okay? So, in that respect, murder is morally relativistic. And because in any situation it's morally relativistic, it might be morally relativistic in other situations, might it? Might it be the case that it's morally relativistic that to the point where you get this debate that comes out of USA. This is quite an interesting one about how the Republican Party was working before it turned into Hitler. Yeah, it's a bit disappointing they did that, because weren't they the party that hated Abraham Lincoln, which was the one that freed the slaves? How can the party that once freed the slaves now have people in their Senate quoting Goebbels? Like, this is an example of how that country doesn't really make any sense. Okay? But anyway, Apparently, the Republicans made a bit more sense before, during the Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't crazy era. And it had something to do with this. Well, it makes, and this is a debate. This is a sardonic comment that was coming out from America's left, apparently. Um, oh, well, if you like that the Republicans think like abortion is bad because like you're not protecting life and somebody could die. They want them to grow up, and turn 18 so they can be conscripted into the military and kill other people's babies instead. That was a Diogenes-like comment coming from the left, wasn't it? Towards America's Republicans. By consequence, potentially, yeah, it was a bit like that, isn't it? Ouch. Moral relativism at work. It's not okay to kill kids unless they're brown kids from overseas, says the American left. Sardonically, because they're not impressed with the idea. Okay? So, once you get into the history and you figure out the history of some of the things they reckon happen, the imaginal constructs called the phenomenological past, because the phenomenological past is the noumenal imaginal construct topics of debate that's in situ conversation, right? Holy fucking hell! See how this wordy shit can sound so clever? It sounds more clever than it is. What's another way of saying it? The past is imaginary because it's not happening right now. It don't exist in your head because, physically, it's the present. Well, that's less wordy. That's less jargonistic. It means the same fucking thing, though. Okay. Okay. So, sometimes you'll probably find that philosophers and academics are really fucking talking shit out their ass. Kant was a good example of that. Okay, so now we're going to have a piss on Kant. Okay, Kant was good to take a piss on Descartes for a while. So let's have a piss on Kant. It's Kant's turn. Diogenes craps on everyone. Right. Well, the actual critique of pure reason, his book is about 400 to 500 pages long. When it's in its English version, the original is apparently in German, and a lot of what was said relating to it was extrapolations of the ideas. The actual main idea is far more simple. Like perception is different to senses. Unlike perception, you can have categories. Unlike like dice and noumenal, maybe. Unlike it's kind of like imaginary because it's not like quite possibly like the same as like what the world is outside. So maybe like there's like a difference between greater reality and like subjective reality or something. Oh really? And so maybe like that Descartes guy was a dummy because if you're basing your assertion of what is empirically true based on your subjective reality using pure reason, then actually you're not actually figuring out what the truth is at all, and maybe the best you can hope for is to the phenomenological physical plane and measure it or some crap. Oh really? Okay, that is basically the entire Kantian thesis right there. That's it. And from that seemingly straightforward argument is a mess, a slew of many other ideas that have come out of it, like lots. Okay, and basically that was what 100 words or less. You might even be able to tweet that. Okay, it could have been 240 characters. Okay, yet the actual book, A Critique of Pure Reason, is that thick. Okay, because in German, right, they have one word that's about 15 letters long. And the English author who does the transliteration, or the translation, has to go, that's basically a sentence, and try and translate it conceptually as well, because when philosophy you're dealing with concepts, and also when you're doing language translations, there isn't necessarily a one-to-one little translation, so it gets a bit confusing. And so the original critique of pure reason in its German format might have been this thick, but in English it becomes that thick. And so maybe Kant wasn't as wordy as he appears in English. What's other interesting is too is he's quoted as being a German philosopher, and obviously Critique of Pure Reason in its original format was in German, but the name Emmanuel Spanish, so maybe he wasn't. Don't really know. Either way, it's maybe Kant never existed. Maybe Kant is a imaginary construct because Immanuel Kant is from the past, just like Descartes. Either way, what seems patently obvious from the AI transhuman agenda is that they've misquoted Descartes, not Kant. They took an idea that Descartes had called the thought experiment of the brain in vats. So Descartes was a bit of an interesting character, in addition to being a rather sardonic, everything is caca or murder guy who liked to sit on his couch with his hand on his face like that, thinking that nothing existed but him. He also was interested in the up-and-coming field of his time called optics and calculus, and was apparently involved in the Protestant Reformation wars on the Catholic or Jesuit side, producing weapons, which he later regretted, defected, and went to Sweden and got assassinated for defecting when he became the tutor of the Princess of Sweden. While he was still in France, he wrote some letters to the Princess of Sweden, apparently applying for a job. Anyway, one of the things he tried to say is, yes, the only true idiot is the atheist. And it's like, in context of everything else in all of his writings, that including the passages that came from, it looked a hell of a lot more like the guy was saying, he's going to pretend he's not an atheist to shut them up so he can get across the border. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Right? Okay? So, an atheist, and Descartes was a closet atheist most likely, didn't actually believe that there were demons controlling people's brains in vats. Because demons are a cult term. Okay? Demons are an idea that come from cults. They are the imaginal constructs, as it were, of religions. An atheist in the absolutist sense of the term would not believe that demons exist. There is no phenomenology to support that argument, particularly if you're an atheist materialist, someone who favours the phenomenology over all else. So we cannot rightfully conclude that Descartes thought the world was a simulation. He didn't. He thought religious people were stupid, would gobble up anything just to give him a few francs so he can cross the border into Sweden. Okay? He was trained by the Jesuits. He realised they were full of fucking shit. He was used by them to bomb some Protestants. He didn't like either of them. The Princess of Sweden seemed just like a smart lady. Either way, she had a fuck ton of money and he was going to pay her more than he was getting back in France. So he crossed the border and got assassinated. It's as simple as that. There was no simulation argument, hypothesis, or suggestion coming from Descartes. Wait a minute. We can even make it even simpler than that, because there's no fucking computers back then, so why would he think like that? Anyway, also, they hadn't invented the crocodile clip electrodes yet, so why the heck would he think that they were actually zapping people's brains? That wasn't for another 150 years or so. So, a couple of holes in their argument there. So Kant was a wordy guy that sort of lends some credibility to the idea that people don't want to listen to academics or intellectuals because they use too many big words and it's boring. And Descartes was a good reason to believe that academics are just a bunch of bored cynics that spend too much time overthinking and are just looking for ways to weasel word their way out of the country they live in because they don't like the politics of their society. Fun times. Oh my god, they're fucking people. No way, they're people. Anyway, so in terms of moral relativism, you probably shouldn't shoot the academia because, they're just people. They are. They're just people. Anyway, and the ones that know that they're using buzzwords to fuck people over, they might be more honest with whoever they are. Maybe, 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 maybe. Or they might acknowledge that sometimes buzzwords are used, and there is such a thing as operational definition, and it is actually part of the scientific method, no less, and you probably should do that. So the sort of moral relativism of if you're doing scientism versus science, it is a moral thing. To be honest, is it not? Is it not considered a normal part of morality no matter which society you come from? To be honest, it's classified as a moral good and dishonesty as a moral bad. Is that not the case? Whether or not that's actually true in the greater sense of things, or in a specific set of circumstances, is another story. However, it is, by and large, most likely seen to be a good thing, to be honest. So, if you're using operational definitions effectively, as part of scientific method, as part of clear communication, so other scientists can do their research properly, and philosophers can read properly and write properly, and audience members who want to learn about how, what the scientists are up to and the kind of ideas that are out there without actually having, labs or whatever, they want to, have some say in it and educate the community or whatever, and the community wants to have a debate, contribute to the debate. These are all great things. There's no problem with that. If people are defining things properly. So the lack of honest use of words like narcissism, for example, which has been used as a massive buzzword, and other terms, has sort of like reduced the level of intellectual honesty that's happening in the community. And so we're in a situation of intellectual moral badness, which is offending against some people who are a little bit stodgy. Anyway, just to put that argument out there. So, those stodgy ones probably retreat into pure atheism or atheist materialism because they don't really want to have to deal with the stupid nuances of the spiritualist traditions, which are obviously ripping on everything they worked hard for. So in other words, they have a sunk cost problem. They've sunk their costs into scientific intellectualism to the point where if they wound up in a situation where they ought to genuinely start to consider the spiritual notions, they might be find that they are woefully inadequate in their skills. They would only wind up there if some kind of other moral bad occurred. Perhaps Satanism or the military-industrial complex, whatever it might be. The point of the matter is that if you denied the existence of spiritual realities and all the noumenal and all the imaginary constructs and all the things, basically, all the things that are not phenomenological, then potentially you could be ignoring about 99% of quote-unquote potential reality. So someone came up with an idea, and bizarrely it was perceived as Weird Al Yankovic. Okay, if you're going to be psychotic, do it properly, right? Okay? Come on, bring on the NDIS. You can't get it for multiple sclerosis, let's get it for being crazy. Okay, let's play that game. Alright? You don't have no idea if this is philosophy or not, do you? You haven't got a clue. Good. Okay, not as anyone else. Right, okay, so so what's the story there? Go on, what's the story there? Go on. You've got actualities, potentialities, probabilities, and imaginalities. Like, yeah, okay, let's do a Venn diagram of imagine. That's which that. Okay, so this actually we make it even bigger than that. Okay. There's the fictitious, right? The fictitious, the imaginary, the potentialities, the probabilities, and the actualities. They're not the same. Okay? The actualities, okay. We'll stay Kantian on this one for a little bit. Okay? Are phenomenological. Okay? This is an actuality. Hello, actuality. Oh, wait, from your perspective, it's a imaginal construct because it's not phenomenologically where you are. Something else is. Okay, fine then. Okay then. Whether or not something is phenomenological or an imaginal construct is relative to the observer. Fine, but here it's